on the drought?
I read the newspaper headlines that said that the governor was mandating water cutbacks. Well, first, a year ago, he asked the residents of California to cut back in their water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he asked to cut back by 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So the city of Riverside responded by asking all of the ratepayers of public utilities to cut back by 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to 4-day week watering during the times of, I think it's between 6 and 8 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
6 at night and 8 in the morning, so it doesn't evaporate during the day. And not to hose your driveways off anymore, use a broom, and to put a nozzle on your hose when you're washing your car. And so that was last year's response to the condition of an extreme drought. And now there's an executive order
Mm-hmm.
this year, a couple of months ago, that the governor has laid down and said you must conserve 25%, or at least across the state it's 25% for each utility or water district. There's different windows, and we are in the, I think, 24th percentile window to have to conserve, otherwise they can fine us up to $10,000 a day.
Now, did the governor actually get in contact with you over it, or did you just read the news or hear the news?
So he just made an executive order, but then he invited 15 mayors up to meet with him in his office, and I was one of those mayors.
Oh, awesome.
So I got to go meet the governor and have a roundtable discussion with his staff and 15 or 14 other mayors from San Diego and Redding and San Jose and Rancho Cucamonga and Coachella Valley. And so we had a heartfelt conversation about his executive order and what he's asking us to do, and so he allowed us to ask questions and went around the table and made statements and told him what we needed to conserve that much water in 9 months. It's really not a year, it's 9 months. We're supposed to cut back by 25%, 24%.
Have you seen it fluctuate in a good way so far, or decrease or increase?
In Riverside, over last year, we conserved, I think it was close to double digits, to over 10%.
Oh, good.
But in the last 5 years, we've conserved 20%. And so, we can do it, but it takes time to get the message out and make sure we educate the public and give them options like removing their turf and replacing it with water-wise, drought-tolerant gardens, and doing the reclaimed recycle water purple pipe projects that we have, so that we can put, it's called non-potable or recycled water onto cemeteries and parks and ball fields and schools,
Mm-hmm.
instead of drinking water, throwing that in the grass. And so we're accelerating some of those projects, and we're hoping to be able to put some non-potable recycled water out onto those spaces and that grass in the next couple of years here, and accelerate those projects.
Now, do you see it making a difference between the poor versus the wealthy? Do you see it do you see the poor initially being more drasticated by it than the wealthy? I don't know how to say it.
Well, water's about use, so the more you use, the more you pay.
Yeah.
So it affects everybody, right? And if you're talking about property owners, the bigger the property and the more landscape that you put into that property, the more you pay. And typically those are the wealthier individuals that are paying more and paying for that water to put on their landscapes. So, I think that it's all about how much you use.
Okay. And then there's desaltinization in San Diego going on. Do you see that happening here at all?
That's the most expensive way to treat water.
Okay.
And so for us to be able to first of all, we'd have to send a pipe right all the way to the ocean. That's expensive enough, and then we'd have to actually treat it. So it's happening in coastal cities because they're next to the water, so they don't have to put a pipe. Just a little ways into the water to suck it in and then to treat it. So no, I don't see that happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Number one way is to conserve.
Yeah.
That's the fastest and least expensive way to make things happen. The second one is the recycled reclaimed water. I talked about the purple pipe, and we've done that in some areas in the city. We're expanding that. And the third way is to capture the stormwater runoff instead of letting all of that water, rainwater and storm water, go out into the ocean to capture it here and put it back into our aquifers. We're 100% groundwater in Riverside, so if you look that way, that's where we get our water. We already have a big pipe and a straw going down into the aquifer underneath San Bernardino, and we joke about having more land in city San Bernardino than the city San Bernardino does, because we 100 years ago had the vision to go over there and buy the property so that we had the rights to the water in the aquifer underneath the ground. And so that's where our source is 100%. We treat it, some of it. The other part of it we send to the agricultural spots on the green belt through the Gage Canal. And so we need to replenish the aquifer. So if we can capture that stormwater, and we have a rubber dam project on the Santa Ana River by Colton that we're working on, and so we'll be able to capture that stormwater, and then it'll be a settling pond, settling it down into the aquifer.
And then, are rebates gonna be pushed on it, you think?
So we continue, we have turf rebates, and we have rebates now, I think I just saw for the WEBIC, the weather-based irrigation controller, because a lot of people just don't turn off their sprinklers, their drinking water. Again, throwing drinking water outside, more than 50% on average of people's water use is for outdoors. So that's what we have to conserve, and cut down on, and make sure to educate people. They don't need to water their lawn every day. They can water it every other day and still will survive.
Yeah, we turned our sprinklers off, so
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to
Yeah.
ask that. And then you've seen on the news about the pipes bursting in like LA and stuff like. Has anything like that been happening here?
Yeah, there's always in infrastructure that's 100 years old, like we have. There's going to be some pipes that rupture or leaks that are out there, and so we want the public to tell us as soon as possible. We don't have a system that alerts us when there's a leak. The system is 311, and so we need the public to look around for leaks or sprinkler heads, that are popped off, and report those to 311, either through the camera. You can smartphone app, you can touch it and send it in. That's the fastest way to do it, or call 311 and report it. And they'll be out there to fix it, usually within 24 hours.
Now, do you see a difference between public usage, corporate usage, and agriculture usage? Like, which one is using the most?
Well, across the state, it's agriculture. Here, I don't have the numbers, for that, but the majority of it's going to be residential. We have more residential ratepayers than we have the commercial ratepayers. And when you look around the city too, there's wells in the city, and so you have California Baptist, La Sierra, they have their own wells, so they don't use a lot of our water, unless it's the treated drinking water that they take and use. But it's called non-potable, or the recycle, reclaim, or well water. So on their property, they've dug a hole, they got a well, they got an aquifer, so they're using that for all that grass in front of Cal Baptist, or the Victoria Club has their own well, UCR has their own wells.
Oh, that's
And so
good.
there are sites that aren't drawing water, drinking water from the city.
Okay.
And so, people are concerned about that. Why do I have to conserve and they don't have to conserve? Well, because you don't have a well in your house and they do. You have to get your water from River Public Utilities, and they have had it for the last 50 or 60 years by digging a hole and putting a straw in the ground and sucking it up.
Is that like a difference between city and county as well? Like,
No, there's districts. So the Western Municipal Water District serves a lot of the county, and the Riverside Public Utilities serves almost all of the city.
Yeah, my mom knows someone on the water district, so we're gonna actually interview him as well. So, and then basically I've gotten everything. And then, what do you think you will do for, personally, like within your house?
Yeah, so
water?
we have a very small backyard of grass, and all the rest of it is either an orange grove, or the front yard's drought tolerant landscape, so we water once a week out front. And then the grass we water every other day, so 3 or 4 days a week. And showers probably consume the majority with 3 girls, my wife and 2 daughters, and myself. That's probably, and then there's one thing that we're going to work on. We're remodeling our kitchen, and so there's and it's on the other side of the house than the water heater. So it takes a long time to get hot water to wash the dishes.
Okay.
And so we're gonna change that out so that whatever system is in place is instantaneous hot water. I think that's gonna save us a lot of water.
And my mom also told me that one of your daughters plays soccer. Do you think she would play soccer anymore if there was no grass to play on?
Well, that's another thing, the artificial turf. So they're going to artificial turf for a number of reasons. One of them is because of the maintenance of the water it takes to feed the grass, and then the ability to be able to play on it a lot more often and not have the dirt holes and divots and mud out on the soccer field. And so there's most of the places, no, not most of them, but some of the places we play are already artificial turf.
Oh, good.
Going that way.
That's awesome that you play soccer. And then I have 2 more questions, and will you address this publicly at all?
We have at city council meetings. We watch city council meetings every week. We have an update on the drought, the issues there. We also, the Riverside Public Utilities has been sending press releases out. So if you go to blueriverside.com, you can find all you want. I think that there is even a specific button on the website, blueriverside.com, that deals with the drought. And so people can go there for all the latest and greatest information and how to, be more drought tolerant in terms of your landscaping and water-wise, and take 5-minute showers, and all the other rebates that we have that are on blueriverside.com.
Okay, and then my last question, I don't know if you've heard of Porterville up north at all, where they turned off their water altogether.
I think so.
Do you think that would happen here?
No.
Okay.
No, again, we're 100% groundwater, so we don't get any water from the state water project. So for the most part, we're off the grid, so to speak, but we want to conserve water, because if it goes on for more than 4 or 5 years, then we're in trouble, even our aquifer. That's why we've got to capture that storm water and that rainwater and put it back into the aquifer. That is going to be a long-term investment that we make for a long-term water supply.
And so the basins are fine, or?
The aquifers
Yeah.
in the Bunker Hill Basin is good right now.
Okay. Right, that's it. Thank you so much. I'm very, very appreciative. I'm sorry for bugging you
No
so
problem.
much. And my mom calling, I'm so sorry. I'm so
Hey,
I know
well,
you're very nice.
this is-
But,
yeah.
are we
It's
done
good to-
recording?
I'd like to ask one thing.
Okay,
Is there
sure.
anything you'd like to add personally, or anything that you think we should know?
I think I've said just about everything that was good questions that were asked, and so I think I've been able to answer all of those and get all the information out of my brain. The Board of Public Utilities and the City Council met a couple weeks ago, and we'll continue to do that to look for long-term solutions to this problem, both in water and electricity. And so that was the first time we've done that, I think, ever. The Board of Public Utilities is the citizen or the civilian oversight of our Riverside Public Utilities. And so there's 9 members on that board, and they have some power to be able to expend some money for capital improvements to the system in the utility. And so the City Council, which is the governing body for the city and long-term visionary body, met with this Board of Public Utilities to try to sync up and to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're responding to the governor's executive order, as well as looking at what's called Utility 2.0. And so we want to be resilient, so that when we have another drought, that we don't have to go through this extreme measures of asking all of our residents to cut back to a degree to where their lawns are going to die. We're ripping out all our medians because that's what the executive order calls us to do, so we're not having more grass in the medians. And we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the trees that are in those medians. We still have to water those to keep them alive. And so there's still we're working through some of the issues. And so another issue that popped up is that we have a transient population of students here that live on campus in the dorms for only whatever it is, 7-8 months of the time at Cal Baptist, La Sierra, UCR, and so they're not counted as a part of our population. And depending on the population size of a city is whether or not we have to conserve up to 28% or 24%. And so I think we've worked it out. We found out that the number of students living in the dorms puts us in the 24% bracket. And so we're continuing to keep an eye on this and making sure that the residents know how to conserve and are educated about the drought and the issues for the next year and 5 years, right? And then the 10-year approach of making sure that we have a water supply in the long run is that those recycled reclaimed water projects and the stormwater capture, the rubber dam project. So we're working hard to address the issue today, but also 10 years from now.
Do you think the drought will end anytime soon, or do you have any predictions on that?
You'd have to ask God about that.
Okay.
When you look at the last 100 years, you can see that the droughts come and go.
Yeah.
And so we're in a drought, and nobody can answer that question, I don't believe, except for God, on when the drought's going to end. And so,
yeah, that's understandable.
Really appreciate your time.
What is your name and your title? My name's Justin Scott Coe, and I am Public Affairs Director for Monte Vista Water District. I also serve on the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Riverside.
And how did you find out about the drought, and what was your reaction?
How did I find out about the drought? It's been actually a 7-8 year drought at this point. We've had one wet year in 2011, but it's actually been a drought ever since I got employed by the water agency, so that's always made me a little suspicious.
Okay.
But we've learned about it just through our understanding of water conditions. We monitor statewide water conditions on a constant basis, particularly agencies like the one I work for that rely on imported water from Northern California. And so when we learn about the drought, we know that there may be impacts on the ability for us to supply water to our customers. At times that gets to a point where we have to declare a water supply shortage. And in all these circumstances, whether we're in a shortage or not, we try to communicate as much as possible with our customers the need to use water efficiently, wisely, and to be proper stewards of the natural resources.
Do you know how much water is left in Riverside?
How much water is left in Riverside? Riverside is
Thanks.
actually really, really fortunate because we rely on local groundwater. So we have rights to groundwater just locally, just a few miles away, that is quite substantial and currently in excess of our needs collectively. So we do not have to supplement that local water supply with imported water from elsewhere, from other parts of the state or even parts of the country at this current time. As we continue to grow, that will change. It really depends on how well and how efficiently and wisely we use this publicly owned water resource.
So do you think when the governor came out on the news stating that California is no wise drought, do you think it was more for a scare tactic? Or
Oh, no, he's absolutely right. The governor is talking about the state in general,
Yes.
and we have the largest water distribution system in the world, in the state of California. The Chinese are just about to build one a little bit bigger than ours, but right now we have the largest distribution system, and the backbone of that distribution system is the snowpack on the top of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And he went up to measure that snowpack at the peak when we're supposed to have loads of snow up there, the peak of the snowpack season before it starts melting in the spring and summer on April 1st, and he found nothing. It wasn't there. So statewide, our snowpack is 1 to 2% of what it should be at this time of year, which is serious. I can't say how serious that is for the entire state. Riverside, fortunately, though, relies on local groundwater, which doesn't so much have a change of that radical nature year to year. And we do have to watch groundwater levels, and it does require a recharge from the surface, but we're in much better shape than the state in general. However, we're required to do our part. The governor, for the first time ever, has declared that everyone must come back by a certain amount. Riverside's included in that, and we will do our part.
Okay, and what effects have you seen so far? Has it been increasing at all, decreasing water usage, or?
Oh, I think water usage is definitely decreasing right now. I think people are really getting the message. It's getting a lot of press. People are hearing a lot about this drought that they need to concern. So we're seeing a lot more yards being changed from grass to water-efficient plants. My yard included. I just did that. You see a lot of people thinking about how they use water, just turning down their irrigation if they want to keep their grass. Changing out devices that are wasting water, that to use more efficient devices, toilets, clothes washers, and those sorts of things. But I think awareness is really the biggest thing about it. You just are thinking about water when you're in the shower, or you're brushing your teeth, or shaving, and you turn it off instead of let it run. That right there is going to save us a huge amount of water.
And then, do you know how the water usage is divided versus public, private, and agriculture?
That's a great question. Statewide, roughly 50% of the water is used for natural systems purposes. We can't just think water's just for us. It's also for everything else. The fish, the bird, even just getting out into the ocean. That's a healthy water system. And 50% of our total water does meet those natural requirements. Then of the remaining 50%, 40% is used by agriculture, and 10% is used by urban domestic use as well as industrial manufacturing, public sector. Now, when you break it down even further, as far as parks and schools and things like that, versus domestic and commercial, domestic is by far, meaning residential, meaning you and I, every day in our homes, is by far the largest water use in the city of Riverside and pretty much everywhere else. Commercial is also a big part, but not as big as residential. And so really the best we can do is to get everybody to change just a little bit of what they're doing with their water usage, and that will give us the greatest savings. But we're working very closely with commercial, with industrial, with the city uses on the parks, landscapes, and so on to get them to reduce as well. And sometimes you get way more savings by working with one industry than working with even 100 customers.
Do you see this affecting more of the poor versus the wealthy?
It's a great question. In total, those who are wealthier tend to have larger houses and larger landscapes, and so they have to use a lot more water in order to keep those landscapes alive. Generally, we used about 60 to 70% of our total water use, which is drinking water, outside to throw it on grass. And so typically the more well-to-do are the higher water users. So we try to, as water agencies, develop rate structures and incentive programs that assist everybody in saving water. We don't want to just help the rich. Obviously, they can help themselves, but they need to, and they need to reduce. That's where we can find the greatest savings. But we also want to help those that have a harder time, because it's very expensive to change out your landscape. And if you're on a fixed low income and you have this grass, you've got to keep it alive. What are you going to do? And so there are specific programs to assist with that, but it's very difficult. It's a difficult. It's something we're constantly thinking.
We met someone the other day stating about the homeless and that they might be turning off the water for homeless people to drink. Do you see that happening at all?
No, I don't see that happening at all. I think in any of our public areas, I think we're required to. I'm not sure about that. But we certainly do have public drinking fountains and public drinking facilities, and I have never heard any plans for those to be shut down. We certainly want them to be well kept up and maintained so they don't have leaks and aren't wasting public resources, but I don't see it.
What do you think that we can do to further assist, helping the drought so we can get more, like changing, I know shorter showers, turning off the faucet when we brush our teeth, even doing sprinklers, but is there anything else that you think that we as individuals can do to help the situation?
We're in such a shortage statewide that what we're pretty much telling all of our customers to do, the simplest thing they can do, first off, we're going to have a lot more water use requirements, so we're going to have a lot more restrictions. You're going to have people required water on certain days of the week, not on other days. And we're going to have people citing people, telling them, you're breaking the rules, you've got to stop that. That could lead to fines. But I think the most effective thing that we could all do is simply say, this is an emergency, it's okay for my grass not to look the best. I'm going to cut my irrigation in half. And if you think about it, the governor's calling for 25% reduction. We use over 50% of our water outside. If everyone cut their outdoor irrigation in half, we need to do.
What do you think about people that are turning off their pools and taking their pools out?
I think that's fine. I think pools, though, are not a large issue. It's really the grass.
Okay.
The grass is the major issue. I mean, if you have a pool, maintain it. Get a cover for it.
Yeah.
A cover, once you put a cover on that pool, it's actually using much less water than if you have grass in the same area. But if you don't have a cover, it's actually using just a little bit more of the grass.
Do you know what the level is to safely get out of the drought, like how far we are into it?
Well, again, we're in a 7-8 year drought,
Yeah.
and it's really not a question of how far we're into it. It's really a question of how much longer is it going to be,
Yeah.
and no one knows. We simply cannot predict the weather. We cannot predict what's going to happen next year or the next year or the next year. We hope we can. We hope an El Nino actually produces more rainfall, hopefully not destructive, but certainly to give us a little more water. But we can't predict. So right now, what Southern California has done over the last 20 years is invested literally tens of billions of dollars in order to get prepared for this situation. And that's the reason you didn't hear about shortages 2, 3, 4 years ago. Even though there was still a drought going on, we had sufficient stored water and sufficient conveyance to maintain where we currently are. Now they're getting below a certain level where they're saying we really need to reserve this last 1 million acre feet of water before we get into our emergency reserves. And so they're maintaining, they're tracking, and they are allocating that. And they've reduced their imported water supplies by 15% to all the people they send it to. And so, they've done it, but they prepared for this. And it's really important for the public to know that the reason your water rates have gone up over these last 20 years was is for us to eventually pass that money on to the Metropolitan Water District, and we're in their hat today, so that they can make these preparations, so that we're not in a dire situation the first year of the drought or the second year of the drought. But we're now, 7, 8 years into a drought. Obviously, we're going to have to do something.
Now, since you say that you're spending billions of dollars, there is a desalination plant that's in San Diego. We were talking about this previously in another interview we were doing. Do you see that happening at all to help out Riverside at all, or do you think it's just mainly closer to areas that are closer to the beach?
Great question, and it's a tough one to answer because there's kind of a no-yes answer. First off, we're 60 miles from the ocean. Pumping water is very expensive. It's heavy stuff. And so economically, it doesn't make much sense for us to directly utilize that desalinated water. But there's a lot of communities along the coast that use imported water that comes from Northern California and the Colorado River. So it would make sense for us to get that water. It doesn't have to travel the last 60 miles, and for them to get another water supply source. So it may become cost-effective, maybe not so much for us, but for places like Nevada or the high desert, to actually help assist the coastal communities in building and utilizing desalination plants so that they can get the water that we used to send all the way to the coast. So those exchanges are very actively discussed.
And then the water district that you work for, how big is it?
My water district is about 12,000 connections. It roughly serves about 55,000 people on the retail side, which means directly to serve main needs. And then we provide wholesale service to the city of Chino Hills, which is another 80,000 residents. So roughly about 130,000 folks for retail and wholesale service.
So since you work at the water district and you see it firsthand, what are you doing personally in your home to help with the drought?
Well, I'm a little bit obsessed about this, so I probably am not the most typical person. And believe me, there's things I'm doing inside the home that are a little disturbing to my wife. I put a bucket underneath the shower, I capture all that water, and that's how I keep my bird bath outside full. I've taken out all the grass in my yard. I have a gray water system for capturing water from my clothes washer, and that's irrigating my new trees that I put in the back, fruit trees. And then I have a rainwater harvesting system on my house that's capturing water. Actually, it's half full, just for the little storms we had this last month. And it's already half full. That water I can hold onto in the tank until the summer, and then I can deep water my trees with it. I also have what's called passive rainwater harvesting, which is basically capturing the water when it falls on the ground, channelizing it, and keeping it in basins until it percolates into the ground. And that feeds like large trees where the roots are everywhere. They love that. So I've done a lot, but that's because I love doing it. Everyone doesn't have to do all that stuff. I just love doing it. If everyone just turned down their irrigation system that they have, that's all they have to do. A quick turn of the dial, they would be doing more than everything I just described.
And since they are doing the turning off their water on the outside of their lawns, how is that going to affect the trees for the air pollution?
There will be an issue, and we want to make sure that when we're turning down or even removing grass, that we reconfigure our irrigation for plants such as trees and shrubs that we've typically just sprayed along with the grass. And so that takes some thoughtful re-engineering of our irrigation system. It can be done. It's pretty easy to do, especially if you have a professional who knows what they're doing, make sure that it's done. But putting bubblers around the trees rather than just allowing them to take the water from the grass, that's actually how trees like it much better. This whole watering grass every day, I don't know any plant that requires water every day except for the rainforest. So really, we need to start thinking, what do the plants really want? And then what plants really want to live here in Riverside? It's not grass. This grass is not native to Riverside. You don't see it anywhere growing wild like you do on the East Coast. It's not incidental. We brought it here, and we've made it suffer, and we've overwatered it, and we should just let it go.
And then, one more question.
Sure.
You see that Riverside utilities was used on the Hoover Dam, and it's based with electricity. How did that work out?
Well, the city of Riverside very, very smartly got involved in a number of different contracts for electric power. We are a publicly owned electric power provider, which is very rare actually. Only 20% of electric power is provided by publicly owned utilities, and this one's owned by the residents of Riverside. And so Riverside got involved in the contract at the beginning quite early. Riverside's a very old town, and they were out and about and looking for opportunities, and they got involved in that one just along with the city of LA and other people. And they just re-upped that contract. So while we don't get a huge amount of power from there compared to our total power portfolio, it is a small and very important portion of our portfolio. And because of the drought on the Colorado River, which I think is 11 years old now, the levels in Lake Mead have gone down, and therefore less head, as I say, pressure for that water to create going through the turbines. There's less electricity being generated than if there was.
Now, will Riverside use like Matthew's water at all?
Riverside actually doesn't need to use Lake Matthews water or Lake Paris water or any of the imported water that is in some of our reservoirs. So Lake Matthews water is Colorado River water. Lake Paris water is State Water Project water from the north. Riverside is very fortunate in not needing any imported water at this time. And so unless something happens, or we have a whole bunch of our wells go out, or an earthquake cuts us off, and our pipelines, they all go across the San Jacinto Fault. So we have a major earthquake, and we're cut off from our local supplies, and we obviously go find whatever supplies we could find, but not like that.
And as you're talking to us, we go to Riverside Community College, and
Excellent.
we were told
Excellent
that
school.
we had a well just for our school. Now, you were stating that there is a well right outside of the college, and what's all that about?
Yeah, I don't know if Riverside City College has its own well that it uses on its own property. If that's true, that's news to me. I know they have wells on their property that the city installed, and that water is sent elsewhere and actually is used for non-potable irrigation purposes, and it's sent through our really cool canal system that's through our city that goes 125 years old. But I didn't know Riverside City College has its own well for its own uses on the city campus. If they do, that's very cool and smart of them.
Is there anything that you would like to add?
Is there anything more you want to hear from me? I guess the big thing is Riverside owns its water, and it owns the right to use the water. But the public owns the water itself. And so when we own a water utility like Riverside Public Utilities, or if you live up the hill, Western Municipal Water District, which is also a publicly owned utility, that you have a certain responsibility as a steward of that publicly owned resource. And so we really need to think when we're saving water, it's just not about your bill. It's not about the governor. It's not even about what your utility requires of you. It's really about what is the most appropriate way to use and to manage personally a publicly owned resource. So we should all think about that.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
How'd I do? Could you hear me?
Awesome.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Hello, my name is Bryn Dustin. I'm 16 years old and I go to Martin Luther King High School.
How are you informed about the water crisis?
My grandpa told me about the water crisis.
And is it something that you take seriously?
Yeah, now that I know that we have to start conserving more water and stuff like that, but before I just thought it was something that the politicians were just telling us.
What was your initial response?
I kind of blew it off, like I didn't really think much of it. I was like, oh, okay, we're going through a drought, supposedly, that's cool.
Why was that your first reaction?
I don't know, I think that adults are more prone to caring about that stuff, and the rest of us, we're just kind of getting told what to do. We're not adults yet, so.
And if you had no water, how would it affect your life?
Well, obviously you'd die. You need water, and you'd stink because you need a shower, and I just think that all around our world would just go to nothing.
And what about Riverside in particular?
Riverside is already like a really hot place during the summer and basically half of the year. So it's easy to, like have to be able to get water to drink and, swim and take a shower and all that stuff. So I think that without it, Riverside would just be this really barren place.
And you said you were informed by your grandpa. Were you informed by the media at all?
After my grandpa told me, I saw it on the media. I saw it on CNN and the news and stuff like that.
And after that, has there been an increase or decrease on your usage of water?
It's been a decrease. What are you doing? So, yeah, I mean, it's been a decrease in my, amount of water that I've been using. Like, it's been a decrease.
And what have you been doing to help with the water crisis?
Usually I was, taking showers every single day, and now I take one every like 3 days or 2 days. So it's like I'll take one Sunday, take one Tuesday, like just like decrease like taking showers and stuff like that.
Okay. Anything else, like when your sprinklers are running water or anything?
Yeah, when my sprinklers are running water, I usually tell my grandpa to turn it off because he has a problem with watering his grass every day. So I just tell him like, hey, let's not do it today.
I'm Chris.
I'm Travis.
We're both 16-year-old high school students.
How were you informed about the water crisis?
Blake Matthews, droppage.
Just social media, pretty much. I saw a before and after picture of the dam.
Is it something you take seriously?
Yeah, kind of.
Fairly. We have some house changes, but
What was your initial response?
Like, oh, damn, like this is really happening.
I didn't even believe it, honestly.
If you had no water in Riverside, how would it affect your life?
Probably have to like go somewhere else, like Seattle, where they get a lot of rain.
Or Oregon.
After you were informed through the media, how have you increased or decreased your usage?
I have stopped taking like 15-minute showers and put them down to like 5 to 10 to save some water.
We just don't run our sprinklers as much, and same with the shower thing.
What other things are you doing to help with the water crisis?
Like,
Telling people, definitely.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
If I see, like, if I'm ever at his house and the sink's running,
yeah, like,
we'll always go shut it
see
off.
someone like that,
things
like see someone's like pouring out water, like.
Or if
Like
I am gonna pour
stop.
out water, I always give it to the plants.
Yeah.
Just don't waste it.
Yeah.
In Banning, California.
How were you informed about the water crisis?
I heard and read about it on television and read about it in the newspaper.
Is it something you take very seriously?
I do.
And what was your initial response?
Well, initially I said everybody should chip in and do their part to try to conserve water so that this hopefully drought and crisis will be over with soon.
And what would you do if you had no water? How would it affect your lifestyle?
Well, not having water, I believe I have about 30 days supply on hand at my house now, which we have stored in the pantry. So if we ran out of water, I'd have 30 days to figure out another way to get water to myself and my wife.
And after you were informed about the water crisis, has there been an increase or decrease in your usage?
A decrease. We went from 12 cubic feet down to 10, so we have saved approximately 20% on just taking the steps that have been recommended.
And what have you been doing to help with the water crisis?
Well, by conserving. I don't use as much water now, take shorter showers, and just watch what we use our water for.